All right, so example number 3 asks you to determine the equation of the quadratic relation in the graph provided. So it's kind of similar. It's a similar type of question. They gave me the vertex and they gave me a point on the graph. So I'm going to use this information to find the equation of the graph. This is the vertex h and k. And then the other point is x, y. So start with the same equation, y equals ax minus h squared plus k. Replace the h and k, replace the vertex in for h and k. So in this case, what's my h value? It's a -1. When I put it in, negative and negative makes a positive. So that's why you see it as a +1 inside the bracket this time. Right? Remember we said yesterday, it's opposite to what you see, and that's why. Because what's happening, it's already a negative, and then you're putting a negative in as well, that makes it a positive. And your k value is +3. After I insert my vertex, I'm going to insert the other point that's given to me. So the y value is 2, and the x value is 0. Now I need to isolate for a, but before I do so, I have to simplify using BEDMAS. So brackets first, simplify inside the brackets. After I simplify inside the brackets, I have to do my exponent. So 1 squared is 1. Now to isolate for a, I have to follow reverse BEDMAS. So the first thing I want to get rid of is the 3, bring it over to the other side, it becomes a -3. So I have 2 minus 3 equals to 1a, or a, I don't even have to write that 1. 2 minus 3 is -1. So my a value is -1. To finish the question, to wrap it all up, I write my equation with plugging in the values for a, h, and k. So y equals to -1, x plus 1 squared plus 3. That is the wrap-up of my question, and that answers to determine the equation of the quadratic function. Are we okay with this? Do we have any questions about this? So looking at an equation, looking at a quadratic equation, I should be able to identify things, right? So when they give you the equation in vertex form, the first thing that you should identify is the h and k, which is the vertex, right? That's the first thing you should identify. So basically putting it all together, okay? Looking at an equation like this, where you have y equals -1x plus 1 squared plus 3, you should be able to identify your vertex. You should be able to identify your transformations, right? There's a few of them here. And you should be able to graph just by looking at this. So let's do the whole thing. The question is not asking you to do that, but let's practice. First of all, I'm going to ask you to do the transformation for me. So state the transformation. What kind of transformation do you see here? It's going to open. It's going to open down. Negative a value, right? Remember I showed you that negative has an n at the beginning, so it's going to open down because of that negative. What do we call the word? What's the, say it? Reflection. So I have a reflection. This is a transformation. Remember, this is on the side, so this is not part of the question. So I have a reflection. What else do I have? Vertical translation, which way? And how much? Up 3. right? So this is right here, that 3 caused your graph to go up 3, right? So I'm just going to skip it because I like to go in order, right? So I'm just going to write it right here. Vertical translation, 3 units up. Okay. And what else? Horizontal translation, 1 unit to the left. Because of that +1, so I have a horizontal translation, 1 unit to the left. Perfect. Okay? So this is stating all the transformation that I have for this function. What else do you know about this function? So I know the step pattern and I know the, what can I find right away? Looking at this, I can locate the vertex, which is -1 and 3. So I know that the vertex is -1 and 3. No, it's the opposite of what you see inside the bracket, right? I'm just going to take you here, right? And what would my step pattern be? So 1, 3, 5, if you don't have an A value. What's my A value? -1. So remember the step pattern is A multiplied by 1, 3, 5. And in this case, my A is -1, right? So it's going to be -1 times 1, 3, 5, which causes it to be -1, -3, -5. So that means it's going to go down, right? Which should make sense. It should all make sense. Does it make sense to you? That's the question, right? When you find your answers, guys, when I found that A, which is -1, I looked at my graph. I'm like, okay, negative, that makes sense because my graph opens down. So things should click together. If they don't click together, that means you have done something wrong, right? If you ended up with an A value, a positive A value, you know that positive means opening up, but my graph is opening down. What happened? Go back and check your work. Okay? This is called problem solving. This is called looking at your answer, making sure that your answer makes sense. Are we okay with this? So this is extra to the question. All right. Now, can I go to the next slide? So basically right now what we're doing is we're looking at that vertex form. We're looking at what does that vertex form mean? How can I graph using that vertex form? So everything that we talked about earlier in the past couple days and today. So what does A represent in the graph, in the equation? It affects the step pattern, but what do I say when I state the transformation? It gives you the direction of opening, and it gives you the vertical stretch or compression. Okay? So A represents the vertical stretch and compression. I'm going to write reflection first. Reflection means direction of opening, the same thing. And vertical stretch or vertical compression. Can you guys remind me when I have a vertical stretch? When would I have a vertical stretch? When would I say it's a vertical stretch? When it's narrow, but what caused it to be narrow? What value of A caused it to be narrow?
When the body is positive.
Vertical stretch greater than 1, right? Greater than 1. So vertical stretch is when the A is greater than 1. And vertical compression is when A is between 0 and 1. Look, it's right here. Okay? It will stay right here. It won't go anywhere. All right. K represents what? K represents what kind of transformation does it represent? Vertical translation. So up and down. And H represents horizontal translation. So that's left or right. Good. The coordinates of the vertex of the parabola are what letters? HK. Now we're going to practice graphing, right? Using the vertex form, using the vertex, using the step pattern. Okay? So what's the first thing I need to locate? The H and K, which is the vertex. So what would be the vertex of y equals negative 4x minus 3 squared plus 5? 3 and 5. Right? It's the opposite of what you see for the H. I don't know how many times I say that. Okay, so I have to locate the 3 and the 5. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's my vertex. Okay, so the first thing you have to do, find your vertex. Second thing you have to do is you have to check what your step pattern is. Okay, so your step pattern is A times 1, 3, 5. I'm not gonna do too many graphs. Okay, we're just gonna do it on one graph. I'm not gonna do that. Okay, so step pattern is A times 1, 3, 5. So what's my A value? Minus 4. So if I do 1, 3, 5 times negative 4, so that's going to give me negative 4, negative 12, negative 20. Right? What does it mean by negative? Which, that means I'm going to have to go down. Okay? So from the vertex, how would I go first? What do I do?
Negative 4 down.
So go down 4 over 1. Okay? So you're going to go down 4, so you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're going to go over 1 to each side. So that's 1 to this side and 1 to this side. Then where would I go from there? Yeah. So from that new point that I have created, I'm going to have to go down 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, that barely fits my next point. So it's going to be down 12 over 1, down 12 over 1, which give me this shape. Does it make sense that my graph is this narrow?
Yes, because A is greater than
Greater than 1. That means I have a, what do we call it? Vertical stretch, right? Because A is greater than 1, that means I have a vertical stretch. That means my graph is going to look narrow, okay? And then does it make sense that it's opening down? It's a negative, so I have a reflection. That means it's going to open down. It should all make sense. Any questions about this? Step pattern is the easiest thing like they have came up with to graph quadratics. You can only use it if you have a quadratic and if you have vertex form. If you don't have vertex form, if you don't know what your vertex is, you won't be able to graph it using the step pattern.
Is this the same as the root of quadratic equation?
The quadratic formula?
Yeah.
The quadratic formula is to find the zeros. Yeah. We don't do that much in grade 11C. We do it more in the 11M mixed. Yeah, there is a mix, so it's university, college level. Are you guys okay with this? Do you have any questions about this? All right. So basically, it's your job to practice the next 2 questions. Okay, so it's asking you to state the transformation and to graph. So it's asking you state the transformation, then you're going to graph. So I'm going to leave you guys with this, maybe around 12:15, or when you do these 2 questions, come and see me and I can give you the quiz to start.